Good evening, this is Barry from Blanchardstown Library, part of the Fingal network of libraries, and I have a real treat in store for you this evening. I'm joined by somebody who's probably best known to you as the hilarious Winnie McGoogan from Mrs. Brown's Boys. She's also the star of her own one-woman show called Live, Love, Laugh, which of course played in the Driocht Centre here in Blanchardstown. She showcased her amazing singing skills in Elvis Is My Daddy. And she most recently showed off her fantastic dancing skills on Dancing with the Stars. Now, to me, I know her as Auntie Eilish, so I'm delighted to welcome Eilish O'Carroll.
Well, thank you, Barry. That was a lovely introduction. Really, lovely introduction. Thank you.
Well, not at all, and thank you for agreeing to be with us here this evening. It's I'm very excited about this, and I know a lot of people are really looking forward to it. So I'm just going to start by asking you, how are you in these strange times we're living through?
Yeah, how am I in the strange times? Well, for me, I'll be honest with you, it was a bit of a process. Like the first week, I was kind of excited because I thought, wow, I can get things done, and the house was spotless within the week. You could eat off the floor.
Yeah.
Now, it's not even safe sometimes to eat off my table, but by the time I'd finished, you could eat off the floor. The second week, I thought, well, the enthusiasm for cleaning had gone, so I started to do a little bit of baking, made myself beautiful scones, hadn't baked in years, ate every single one of them. Third week, I suppose, for me, what happened was I realised I was eating my own weight daily, right? And I thought, it's nearly time, I better get out and, get myself ready. And I did, and I went out for walks and I did my exercises. And then it suddenly hit me that I had been charging around in my life, like the blue arse proverbial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly came to a stop where there was no demands on my time. I didn't have to slap on the makeup. I didn't have to be presentable. I didn't have to put a face on. You know what I mean? I didn't have to perform. And that was lovely, just to be, just to actually stop and be. And then I started to enjoy the fact that I could read when I wanted to read. I started writing again. I just started doing the things that I really love doing. But it took on a completely different kind of energy for me. There was no pressure. I was doing this because I wanted to do it. And then I started reevaluating my life. Now, I don't mean to sound heavy here, okay? I really don't.
I think we all did that a bit, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely, because it gives you that time to question. And I thought, I always remember saying to people, oh, you're so, me saying, oh God, I can't do that because I'm really busy, or tomorrow I'm really busy. I was always complaining that I hadn't got enough time, right? I haven't got enough time for this. And I thought, I have to make time to have the time, and that was a lesson for me. And I realized that I was charging around, really busy, and to be honest with you, not really achieving an awful lot. Right, I just got into that spiral of, I must be. If I'm not busy, then there's something wrong. Yeah, and now I realize that it still kind of gets to me sometimes, and I think, oh, I must be doing something. That I actually don't have to be doing anything. It's okay just to be.
Well, do you know what, Eilish? I can completely relate with that. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of people are feeling exactly the same way. At the moment, so what you said there, I think will really resonate with people.
Yeah, I hope I'm not alone in it, and I think it's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster for us, and now I'm able to be grateful for how lucky I am in my life, to have what I have in my life, and I'm so grateful for that, and just to be grateful for life itself, particularly through these awful times. And this pandemic has kind of brought us all up short. It stopped us in our tracks. And it's for some people, it literally stopped life for them. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky. I hope I don't lose it. I hope if we do go back to the new normal, whatever that new normal is, that we manage to retain that insight, right? And actually say, no, hold on a second, It's about quality of life. It's not about how much you do in a day.
Yes.
It's about what you give to life in a day rather than,
Absolutely.
if I'm making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's maybe one of the good things that might come out of all this. I think that people are maybe seeing what's really important. So I'm going to move on now to maybe talk a little about your life. And we're going to start at the beginning. There's no better place to begin.
Absolutely.
There we are. So you of course came from a large family of 10, although I've heard that number change a few times, depending on who's talking about it.
11, 10,
And so can you tell us, where did you come in the family, and tell us a little bit about the family?
Okay, I came in at number 9 in the family of 10 at the time. I was number 9 at the time. And I was, by all accounts, the last baby that was going to be brought into that house. That was it. So I kind of started off my little life surrounded by mothers, because I had 4 older sisters as well as 4 older brothers. So I had 4 older sisters who obviously their job was, and I'll tell you the reason why later, their job was to look after the younger ones, right? So I had 4 mothers, including my own mother, right? So I had 4 mothers who doted on me. And I'm told that a little girl, right? Until Brendan came along.
Okay.
Right?
And ruined your party.
Without any...
Yeah.
Yes, without... I was 3.5 when he was... in those days, no one told you that there's another little brother or another little sister possibly coming into the house. There is no... There's absolutely no explanation. And I walk in, and this thing, that's how I remember it at 3.5, is in my carry cot. Right, the same carry cot that had obviously slept all of us in our time. I don't think they had the money to replace it, so it was dog-eared and it was well worn, but it was pink because her first child had been a girl, so it was pink. And this thing is in my carry cot. And the moment he came into the house, the minute that he arrived, I lost my position in the household. I was position, no longer the baby. And that was quite traumatic for me, because I couldn't rationalize it in my head. I couldn't understand why I was being treated differently now. So and it didn't help, because he was adorable, and apparently he made everybody laugh from the time he was in. So it was a very hard act to actually follow or compete with, and so on and so forth. Early memories. And so go on, next question.
We'll go on with that. And I don't think my sister Linda's ever forgiven me for stealing her thunder.
Sorry, I've lost you there. Say that again.
No problem. I don't think my sister Linda's ever forgiven me for kind of stealing her thunder. So,
Oh, absolutely. No matter how prepared she might have been for it, right? And quite frankly, Barry, you did make a lot of noise when you did enter this world.
A little bit, but anyway, look, we'll move on. On that point, we'll move on. We'll move on. And of course, you mentioned your mother, who I know as Nanny, and sadly she did pass away when I was very young. But she was a TD, of course. She was a Labour Party TD in the inter-party government in the 50s.
She was.
And what was it like growing up having a mother who was in Dáil Éireann?
Well, you see, I have very little memory of Mammy from that young age, because and prior to her being elected in 1954, and I was only 2.5 then, so when she was elected, she had been out canvassing, obviously, at rallies and meetings and so on and so forth, all the run-up to the election. So I don't understand why I can't. Right, that's how I identified my mother. It was the smell of her when she was in the house, and the house was like Houston Station revolving door, because she was there when she was there. Friends would call, all seeking advice and support and help, and she was an amazing advocate for people. She would spend hours writing letters on behalf of people, on housing issues and health issues and educational issues and as woman, right? So, and as I got older, I mean, I didn't know it's because she's a TD. I'm not going, this is what happens when you have a mother as a TD. To me, she was just mammy, right? And it was only when I went to school and as I was growing up through school that, you know, when I was, the teacher would say, that's Eilish O'Carroll, and another adult would pop, oh, it's not Maureen O'Carroll's daughter, is it? So I was always known as Maureen O'Carroll's daughter, never known as Eilish O'Carroll, never had my own identity. So yeah, it was great because she was a great conversationalist, as you would probably remember yourself. You were drawn to her. She was a magnet. You couldn't help but be drawn to this woman. She had a huge personality without necessarily being overpowering. So she had that kind of magnetism that when somebody walks into a room, you knew that something very powerful energy, the energy changed in the room, and for the better when she walked into it, right? So yeah, that's my memories of as a young child when she was actually obviously very active in politics.
And she had a particularly interesting kind of story, didn't she? I mean, from what I've been told, was she a novice nun? She went from that to politician. That's quite a journey.
It's quite a jump, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
She entered the convent. She was educated in Mayo in a convent called Gardner Abbey, Jesus and Mary Convent. They were a French order. They were a French teaching order that had come to Ireland, I think, in the early 1900s. And they set up their first school in Gardner Abbey in Mayo, right? And my mother, because her father was from Galway, and he was her biggest influence and a great advocate for education himself. After his death, she was sent to Gardner Abbey along with her sister Eilish, and my mother was only 12. So from 12 to 22, I think it would have been, she was in the convent. So at 16, she went in to become a novice.
Okay.
That's at 16.
Wow.
Now, she took her first profession but didn't take her second one. And the story goes, Barry, and I don't know whether you know this, that she actually ran away.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah, that she was off to Galway University. They were one of the first religious orders to go to university, and she was a novice, and she was in what they call a hostel that the school had in Galway for their students who would actually go to university and come back and stay in the hostel. And she one night borrowed some clothes from probably a sleeping student, a day student in undergear, and hightails it off to the station. Wow. Now she's picked up by the police and she's brought back to the convent. And I think there it's revealed. That was her moment when I don't think she could admit that she did not want to go any further. The shame that would have brought on, the disappointment from her mother's perspective, the disappointment from the nun's perspective. So I think she was under a huge amount of pressure and couldn't handle it, couldn't verbalize it. So anyway, they applied for special dispensation. They got it 3 months later. She was allowed officially to leave the convent and went back to Dublin. And I believe finished her education in a college in Dublin. And then went into teaching. At some point she did teach, but I think she went in and worked for the Irish Sweepstakes initially, and then married her husband, my dad, and then obviously had to give up her job because married women could not be employed as a civil servant. So. And obviously you said that eventually led to her being elected as a TD. I think that would have been kind of the first kind of, injustice. And it would have been the unfairness of it. And plus the fact, the one thing she always used to say to me, that her father kept saying, education, education, education. Maureen, it's going to open up so many doors for you. You can be anything you want. And she passed that on to us, not the education bit, but you can be anything you want bit, right? So, she believed it. And of course, it was untrue for her because she's a woman, right? And I don't think he didn't see education as a gender issue. He didn't see, and thankfully he must have been a man well before his time as well, that women played a certain role. It was, if you have it, you use it. You learn it, you educate, you're educated, you go out and you change the world. And she believed she was going to do that. And of course, the first time, you know, when she's told, sorry, you just married now, you're not going to be doing anything, I think that really got her goat up. And that's, I suppose, when she was looking at all issues relating to women. And yeah, I think that was the catalyst for her to say the best way forward here is to actually be politically active.
Yeah. And she did achieve quite a bit in her time. And could you maybe tell us some of the highlights of what she did achieve?
Yeah, she was a real trailblazer. I suppose she was best probably remembered for her campaigning, fiercely campaigned for Irish women to be employed as vanguardies, not to be employed, they were employed in clerical posts.
Yeah.
And I think some of the arguments she used was the fact that we had a right to be in the vanguardie, but also that women's rights, prisoners, whatever you want to call them, offenders, their rights were being infringed upon because they were being searched by male guards. Females were being searched by male guards. And that's just not, in her book, was not right. So that was one of the arguments she used, plus the fact that women who wanted to report a crime against women, like rape, like domestic abuse, were more inclined to go to a female guarded and report it than they would be a male guarded. They would be more trusting, and they would feel they were being heard. So, and I believe, now I'm not sure about this, but Ireland was probably the first country in Europe, if not the second country in Europe, to employ females as police officers, right? So she was very instrumental in that. The other one was the adoption bill. Now, she argued for quite some time again in the Dáil, and she made herself very unpopular by challenging the adoption laws that didn't include, now at the time when the adoption bill came into force, children under 7, right, could not be sent overseas. Now let me get this right, yes. So they could not be sent overseas for adoption, right? But it didn't include illegitimate children. So illegitimate children were being shipped almost after birth to America and Australia to be adopted, right? And as we know, Ireland had a very high rate of illegitimate kids, all being born in mother and baby homes.
She had quite a problem with the word illegitimate itself, didn't she?
Oh, she did, because she campaigned again, and it succeeded, that the word illegitimate be removed from the birth certificate and replaced with the word father unknown. The stigma of the word illegitimate wasn't something that she wanted any child to carry. So, you know, she really had a great heart and a great sense of social justice, and that was another thing that she. But just to very quickly tell you this, I was doing some research on her in 1996. That would have been 95, 96, and I went to see the chief librarian in the Dáil, right? And she was just finishing a book with I can't remember his name now. A Labour TD, and they were co-writing this book of women.
I spoke to her around the same time, Eilish.
You spoke to her as well. Meg McNamara was her name, right? And she said, when I just coincidentally made a phone call the week that she was still researching all these women, and I said, look, you know, I'm phoning about Maureen O'Carroll. She was my mother, and I just want to try and find some information out about her time in politics. And she goes, I can't believe this, because she said, I have just started researching this week this woman you're talking about, and she dances off the pages. I mean, she's like no other woman has, because she was so rare. She said there wasn't any issue she didn't. No debate. There was no debate I can say she didn't get involved in, right? She said, we couldn't send you out the paperwork for her debates. There's too many of us, you know, just, you know, so she really took her role very, very seriously, and she loved it. She enjoyed her political life.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some of her speeches,
and you know, and women today.
Yeah, yeah, I have, and she loved the word poppycock. That cropped up an
Oh, she
awful
loved
lot.
that.
Yeah,
I mean, that was for another. That was a substitute, but it was terribly posh, wasn't it? Poppycock, kind of word that Southsiders would use, but not Northsiders.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But poppycock was a great word. Fiddlesticks was another one, and
no, and as you said, she was a woman really ahead of her time, I think, and her father was a man ahead of his time, and I obviously didn't know him, and it's amazing for me to hear this, because I'm a great believer in education as well. I think it's the silver bullet to a lot of problems, and it's amazing to hear that.
And the more you do, the more you go into the history of the family, and particularly her family, her father's side of the family. Yous are all teachers. Every generation, they've been teachers, right?
In some form,
and that's what he started off. Like, you know, he used to teach Irish to the nuns in Dublin. He used to cycle around after a day's work to teach the nuns how to speak Irish again.
And can I just ask you?
Fluent,
Actually, you said it was the French nuns she was educated by.
There was a French order.
Did she speak French? Did she speak French?
Her languages were French, Latin, and English, and Irish.
That's amazing to me now. Yeah.
And I think she took her matric in Irish.
Okay.
Right. So you know, she took her exams in Irish. Right. So she was. He never spoke to her in any other language but Irish. Right. Okay. Their conversations. She told me this, that were always in Irish. Mavorian, he called it. I just think that's so poetic, Mavorian. And she was absolutely besotted with this man. And I think to lose him at 12 must have been devastating for her. Absolutely devastating. And then to be sent away to school so far away from home must have been equally. Because when I asked her why she became a nun, why she ever went into the convent, and she said, they became her family. They became her surrogate family at 12 when she went in there. She said, and I was very fortunate, she said, because I was bright. And the nuns loved this. They loved teaching me because I was a sponge. I would pick it up and I would run with it. So she said, I loved the attention that got me. And so, you know, it kind of helped her with her grieving process.
Yes.
And she said, so by the time I was coming up to that age where I should be making decisions about what I was going to do with my life, I did not want to leave my family again.
Yeah, and I mean I'm learning things here now about my own grandmother, I have to say. But I'm going to move on a little bit now to maybe talk about your dad, because I mean you lost your father at a reasonably young age as well. Sadly, I never knew him at all. And what are your memories of him?
Yeah, I sadly I lost him too young, but my memories of him are he was a very quiet man, very gentle man.
Did he have a choice, Eilish?
He did. You know what I loved about their relationship? I was very fortunate, being number 9, that there weren't that many of us left when they kind of were at an age where they had time for each other again. Right, and they would talk for hours. I mean, the routine was he'd come home from work at 5:30, and she'd have his dinner ready. He walked in the door at 6:30. She'd go into this very small scullery. You might remember the kitchen and thing. It's very tiny scullery. The door got closed, right? And dare you go in there even for a glass of water between. Now, don't think you're doing anything other than having conversations. The laughter I would hear coming from it. And I used to think, what do they talk about? Because they do it all the time. They're always talking. So he was a man born before his time. Because my memory of my dad was probably greater than the memory of my mum. He was always there. He seemed to be always there. He did the cooking, he did the cleaning, he washing, ironing, right? Bathing us. He made our shoes, repaired our shoes, made my first ballet outfit. He stitched it. He sat down at the sewing machine and did it, right? He didn't complain. He wasn't embarrassed about coming home from work on a Saturday afternoon. He worked half a day on a Saturday, and donning my mother's apron. And he would clean the house from top to bottom, and he would stand outside on the doorstep, apron still on, leaning on the sweeping brush, the fag in his mouth, and I could hear him go, "So Nelly, how are you getting on, love? Have you much more to do?"
Isn't that another man ahead of his time? Gender roles.
This was another man. He didn't feel inferior.
It's great.
Right? I'm not saying they didn't have their problems, of course they did. And I'm not saying they didn't have rows about the fact that, not another meeting, Maureen. You know what I mean? Of course they did. They wouldn't be normal otherwise. But they had this lovely understanding. They supported each other. Right? And she could not have achieved what she achieved without a man like that behind her. I'm absolutely convinced of that. Yeah. Or she might have been forced to leave us all and go away. You know what I mean?
And how old were you, Eilish, when he did pass away?
I was 12 when he died. Yeah. And I'm just getting to know him. Because I it might come as a surprise, I was very shy as a kid. And I was very shy of him. Right, so I didn't find it easy to talk to him, although he wasn't a difficult man to talk to, apparently, because my older sisters tell a very different story. So I have to own that one. I think I was kind of a little bit in awe of the man, and I didn't really know, because obviously even at that age, my mother was the ruler. Does that make sense? She was the decision maker. And that was because, and she would admit, he didn't like to make decisions. Right. He didn't like to be unpopular. So if we wanted to do something, she was always the one that we would say yay or nay. And although she did try on occasion, say, ask your daddy, whatever your daddy says, you go to daddy, and he go, oh no, Jesus, no, whatever your man says now. So he didn't want to take on that responsibility. He wanted to be the enabler, I think.
Okay, well that's amazing for me to hear, because again, like I said, I never knew the man at all. So it's lovely to hear some stories about him. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back to you now.
Okay.
And I mean, obviously this is Pride Month, and it's something that we've always marked in the library, and we've been promoting a lot of our LGBT material at the moment.
Yes.
Can I ask you, when did you become aware yourself of your own sexual orientation?
Oh wow, I was literally I had just celebrated my 40th birthday. Wow. And it's a time in life when most women, I think, reflect on their life, and it's a time where, well, for me, my children were almost independent. One was away at university, and one was just coming up to leaving school and not sure what he wanted to do. And I was at that time with what's the meaning of life, what's it all about? What's my next move? What am I going to do? So I joined, I took 4 days off work because I worked full time at the time. I took 4 days off work to do this course called Find Yourself Through Spirituality. Right. Okay. And it was very interesting, and I challenged it a lot, but I didn't find myself. I met a woman who became a very good friend. But after a while, I realized the feelings I had towards her were, for want of a better word, Barry, not normal. Okay.
Yeah, at the time.
And I don't want to. I hate using that expression. And of course, on hindsight, I say it was perfectly normal. But at that time, for me, it's like, wow, gee, this is coming out of left field.
And Ireland was a very different place as well.
Oh, Ireland, and I was living in the UK at the time.
Right,
so
okay.
I mean, I kind of, on reflection, I might have been luckier. But ironically, what I did through all of this, because it is a long story, through all of this, I didn't handle it terribly well, because I had trouble coming to terms with it myself. I wasn't sure what it meant. What does it make me? I was convinced it made me something that I had to kind of face up to. And I wasn't able to do that. So I became quite neurotic, and I wasn't able to tell anybody. I wasn't able to discuss it with anybody. And in the end, what I did is I came back to Ireland. Now, who comes back to Ireland to come out? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going, let's run away. And in fact, that's what I did. I didn't realize it at the time, of course, But when I look back on it, that's what I actually ran away. I couldn't handle the fallout. I couldn't handle that, that it broke up my marriage. I couldn't handle that, I couldn't tell my kids. Wasn't able to even verbalize it. And now this didn't happen overnight. It was like a 4-year process. So by the time I was 45 is when I came back to Ireland. Right. And I didn't come out until I was 50.
Right. Wow.
So
and what was that experience?
I made it very long and painful.
Yeah. What was that experience like, actually? And I find it amazing that we still have to even talk about the idea of coming out. Wouldn't it be lovely if we get to a point where that's no longer necessary?
And I'm hoping there will come a time. It won't be in my lifetime, but there will come a time when coming out will be literally, are you coming out to play?
Yeah.
Are you coming out to the theatre? Are you coming out, It won't mean, it won't mean the closet.
Yeah, but just like saying I'm left-handed.
So So I'm really looking forward to that day. Now, what was it for me when I did actually do it? When I did actually come to terms with it? The journey was really all about. This is my journey. I can't speak for anybody else, but my journey was all about coming to terms with it myself, coming out to myself, and actually going, I'm not going to die from this. And in fact, I stopped living because I couldn't face it. I stopped. I was living a lie to myself, and in that, what happens is you lie by omission, right? So people kind of go, they assume that you're married or you're divorced, and you've just returned to Ireland and all of that. And I didn't dispel this belief. I didn't go, no, actually, you got it wrong. I'm here because I'm hiding. Don't tell anybody, but I might be a lesbian, right?
People didn't even say the word, they kind of whispered it.
Yeah, I couldn't even say the word. No, don't even say the word.
And can I just ask you, how did the people around you, when you did finally come out, for want of a better word, react? And I'm particularly interested in your two sons, my cousins, Stuart and Lee, because I seem to remember you telling me about that once before, how they reacted.
Well, yeah, and I suppose they were my biggest fear. I was really kind of very scared, and it took me too long to tell them, right? And every time I went back to visit them in the UK, I'd be prepared to tell them, and I couldn't tell them. So this particular trip, I made a point of saying, I'm coming over for a reason, and I want to see you both on your own, and I'd like to take us out for dinner so that we can have a conversation. That'd be great, Mum. Which kind of should have been a bit of a red flag for me, because I don't normally get responses like, that would be great, Mum, because you'd normally get, why do we have to be on her? You know what I mean? So we went out for dinner, and the buggers knew that I was coming out with this. They knew, right? But anyway, I wasn't in a position to tell them before because I didn't want to disable them with my emotion. I didn't want to get emotional about it. I didn't want to cry, right? So they made me wait until after dessert, because every time I went and said, they go, no, listen, hold on, let's just have a bit of dessert now, right? And then I go, okay, ready? And they go, no, do you want a coffee, Lee? Do you want a coffee? And I thought, anyway, we're all sitting down, and they said, okay, Mum, what is it? So I said, look, you probably already know this, but I've never uttered the words. And the reason I didn't utter the words before is because I didn't have the words. I couldn't utter them to myself, so I couldn't utter them to anybody else. And I said, I can go down the road of, I was afraid of rejection and all of this kind of thing. But I said, now I'm sitting in front of you now, and I just want to tell you, right, that I actually am a lesbian. So there was dead silence, which I wasn't expecting, right? And I thought, in my head, I'm going, don't cry. Eilish, do not cry, right? And I didn't. And I waited, and sure it goes, well, I've got to tell you, Mum, I'm really, really, really angry. So I'm getting defensive immediately, right? And I'm going, just let him finish, don't, and I'm trying to be all understanding. Yeah, well, I kind of, I did not understand that, He said, I'm not angry because of your sexuality. I'm angry that you couldn't tell us, you couldn't trust us. You didn't believe for 1 second that we would be there to support you. He said, we knew you were going through something. We kind of had an idea in our heads what it must be. But he said, until you verbalized it, we couldn't. But he said, that's why I'm angry. He said, now, I'm not angry. He said, as far as the mother issue is concerned, we could be here all night about that one. But he said, I'm certainly not angry about your sexuality. And Lee joins in and says, well, and I said, well, how about you, Lee? He says, oh, no, ditto, I agree with you. So, yeah, I made the journey, which was painful, extra painful, purely because I didn't trust.
And I suppose,
I was afraid of rejection.
Yeah, and that's an incredible story. And I suppose it leads me to the next question is, I suppose being who you are now and the experience and what you've learned and how you've developed, what advice would you maybe give to yourself back then when you were 40 or so and finding yourself? What would you say to yourself now?
Oh, not to take myself too seriously, not to try and put a label on it, not to be afraid of verbalizing it, right? To seek help, that's what I should have done. I should have thought, I'm not able to cope with this, so I need to be able to cope with it. And I didn't, so I ran like a headless chicken, right? I'm not, I was so influenced by my own internalized homophobia, right? That I was the one literally putting the nail. I was nailing myself to the cross, right? Because I was all the things, and they weren't things I believed in, but they were words that I'd heard. And it was the only education I had in my little head, going, that's perverse, that's not normal, you'll die in the fires of hell for this one. And I'm going, but I'm not even religious. I stopped believing years ago. But, your conditioned child is never too far away. Yeah. When life throws something at you that you totally do not expect to have to handle. And then you see, then you kind of wrangle with this conscience and try to determine whether this is my conscience or is this a self-imposed guilty trip that I'm being put on.
Yeah, and we're often our own worst critic, our own worst enemy, aren't we?
Every time. Yeah. And I think it's more of an Irish thing than any other culture, because I think, we do criticize ourselves and we do criticize each other.
Yes.
We're begrudgers. We're the land of saints, scholars, and begrudgers.
Yeah.
It's like like expressions like she's a bit too big for her boots. You think, look at your one, right?
Yeah.
Look, she thinks she's the dog's dinner. Whereas if I lived in America, they'd be going, "Go on, girl," right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. We just have to change our language, I think, and change our thinking, and realize that, if you don't trust yourself and believe in yourself, nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
That comes from inside. You can never get that externally, and we're always looking for it externally. That actually comes from in you. The approval or the disapproval comes from in you. And we've never been brought up that way.
And for any kind of, I suppose, young people watching who are maybe struggling themselves and are like you, that kind of beating themselves up or being, struggling with the identity, what would you say to them?
I think it's be very selective who you talk to, because it is a very delicate issue for you at this moment of time. In the scheme of things, there's a lot of other curveballs that life could throw at you. This is no big deal, but we do feel it is at this time, because we question everything about ourselves and our identity. And we don't want to let people down, and all the things that go with it, right, you are okay, and it is, you are just okay. Stop worrying about it, but do talk to somebody. Now, whether that's a helpline or whether that's an auntie you can trust or a sister you can trust, but you know, I think particularly if they're very young, i.e. early teens, that's the most difficult time, I think, for them. And they really need to be very selective who they trust, because, you know, it's a very fragile time emotionally. And I just want everybody to be tender and understanding and support them. And that isn't always the experience.
And I'll actually use that as an opportunity to say that hopefully when things do get back to normal in some way, the Blanchardstown Library does actually share the building with the Jigsaw organisation who help young people with mental health, and they, you know, they're a great service, and they're all over Fingal and in Ireland as well, you know, and that's a place for people to think about, maybe when, you know, if you're struggling and you need someone to talk to.
Absolutely. And there's a higher rate of young people, LGBT people, with mental health issues than there is, say, in the heterosexual world. Percentage-wise, for the size that we are, we have a very high percentage of young people with mental health issues. And I do believe it's because of they're not able to talk about it, or they're afraid they won't be accepted.
Yeah. And I think we're getting better at that. We're slowly, but we're definitely getting better.
Absolutely. Thankfully, we are. Yeah. Things are
and men especially as well. I mean, men never spoke about anything really, and that's thankfully you've sports stars coming out now and talking about their struggles, and that kind of pushes other people, doesn't it, to say, well, do you know what, I'm not all right.
Yes, and that's exactly it.
Yeah,
it's normalising it, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Right, that we need to normalise this. It's not a disease, it's not a condition, right? It's who we are. And we're no different from it. We want the same things as everybody else for our kids and our family. We want families, we want to be part of the society. We don't want to be isolated for any reason. And isolation's a terrible thing for whatever reason it happens. Nobody should be alone.
Yeah, and what you say about normalising, I mean, my little boy Louis, who you've met several times now, one of his favourite books at the moment, and it's great, is a lovely story about it's based on a true story, two male penguins who adopted an egg together. And it's a beautiful story. But
lovely.
You know, what's lovely is, to him, that's just another story.
Normal.
It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
And what he's learning there is nurturing doesn't necessarily, it's not a female thing. You know, nurturing, you know, is, you're quite as capable of it as I am. Right? And I think that's lovely. And we have two males adopting an egg and bringing up a little chick. Eh?
Isn't that great? Yeah. So listen, I'm going to kind of talk a bit, maybe the social issues around that now. I mean, obviously in Ireland we have made a lot of progress in recent years around LGBT matters, and I remember speaking to you a few months before the marriage referendum, and you were nervous. I was kind of saying, this is going to pass, and you were, I don't know. And what made you hesitant to think?
Well, you see, I was out campaigning. I was going door to door, right? And so we were getting very mixed reactions. You were getting people who really wanted to throw oil on you and set you alight.
Wow.
Absolutely, most definitely. You had those who had the courage to slam the door in your face. You had people who said immediately, as soon as you hadn't even opened, you're standing there with your pamphlet, oh yes, I'm going to vote yes, and shut the door. So we were getting mixed reactions, and of course listening to stories, particularly of the young, and I was feeling really for the younger boys and girls, i.e. in their early teens, well, let's say or over 20, going out, and because this would have been their first real kind of in-your-face rejection, right? That they're going to experience. So we were kind of a little bit concerned. They wanted to do it. We were a little bit concerned about what impact is that going to have, negative impact is that going to have on them. But we did all get together and relate our stories and so on and so forth. And I just felt when push came to shove, people would still be afraid, right? And when it was the landslide was. Right? And I had to go down to West Cork because I was living in West Cork at the time, and that's where I had to vote, right?
Yeah.
So I had to go down to West Cork to vote. So I was sitting on my own when I got up early on the Saturday morning, and the results had started to come in. And I was listening to the radio, and I think they were talking about this. All I could hear was landslide. And I'm going, it's far too early for it, And I turned on the TV, and I think they were all outside Dublin Castle. And they started singing, I'm going to cry now, the national anthem, right? And I just sat there and I cried, because it wasn't just gay people there, it was people from all across society. And it was just an amazing historical moment to see that happen. And I'm sitting there crying, and I want to go on a celebration. There isn't anybody to celebrate with. But I did meet you by accident in Spur that afternoon. We did go into the West Cork Hotel and we did celebrate. But yes, it was, I think the older ones were kind of, we'd been here before.
Yeah.
And we're getting close, but we may have to wait another 4 or 5 years before we can go again. We're getting very, very close, but we're not actually there yet. Yeah. And the younger ones were saying, no, we're there. And we were there, and it was just wonderful celebration.
What I remember about it was the first time, I think, probably since Ireland have played in the World Cups, that I've seen such a national unity and kind of coming together, and the celebrations in Dublin Castle.
Yeah.
And the image I have of the day is these people from different walks of life. I have this image of Miss Panty and Gerry Adams sharing a stage together. And it was just an extraordinary scene.
It was just extraordinary. You just go, wow, this is something else. This is this gave us our validity.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll just move on to that. I mean, what happened was amazing. What do you feel needs to happen next for the LGBT community? What's the next step?
I think there needs to be a lot of education around transgender and the journey that they have to make. That's what I think. I think there needs to be more awareness around the older gay man and gay woman, right? What facilities, resources, when it comes to our need for nursing homes or retirement homes, how will they be addressed? Will we begin again to lose our identity, right? Because we may even lose our memory, so we may not know what we are. And will we be swallowed up, right? Will that be lost somehow? Will we start again having to come out? And you know what I'm saying? So they're the kind of things that concern me, right? But I think, it's all about the little battles or big battles that we face in life for recognition and acceptance. And I think that's the next one. It's like, let's address this.
And what you spoke to me before while we were planning this. There's other issues that you're quite passionate about in Ireland and internationally. That what else do you feel is important at the moment?
Oh, I feel really strongly about homelessness in Ireland. I feel strongly about direct provision. I want to see it abolished. I feel strongly about starvation globally and poverty globally. The list is endless for me, right? I feel strongly about inequality for women when it comes to pay. We still kind of get less pay than men for the same work. We still have a long way to go. We're underrepresented still in the media. We're underrepresented in business, in politics. We represent 50% of the population. Let's see 50% representation, please. Right? And it's not as if we don't have the skills out there. It's not as if we don't have the women and the expertise out there. We do, It's just we need that imbalance to be addressed.
Yeah. Because
it's we're not being fairly represented. Yeah. I know I wrote down a couple of things and I thought, what am I right? Things that really kind of mean a lot to me, but poverty definitely was one of them. and homelessness. And the homeless situation in Ireland is shame on us, shame on us. And COVID is not going to help matters at all. And I feel, you know, and we hear little about them now at the moment, the homeless and people in direct provision. You know, it's the news is all about COVID and how it's affecting the general population. So those who are marginalised aren't really kind of getting a look in. And I can't see this that helping their situation at all. I think it's just going to get worse. Yeah. And it will come back to the news. It has to, when things start to normalise again. But yeah, I feel very strongly about that.
And we're living through a period at the moment that I suppose a lot of us are really beginning to question issues around inequality, racial inequality and other inequalities at the moment. And yes. you'd hope maybe we're in a period of a bit of an awakening. You can only hope that it I mean, I've certainly questioned myself about certain privileges I have that other people don't have due to their gender or race or whatever else.
Yes.
You know, and you can just only hope that this will lead to somewhere better.
Well, I do hope so. But I think when you have something like this, which impacts all of us, right? It's common to every single one of us. And again, you know, when the issues are being addressed, again, we will look after those who are probably, deserve to be looked after, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But it's all about how much we have to go around.
Yeah.
And then the less or poorer, right? When something like this happens. And that's sad, but it's a reality. I'm not blaming anybody for it, but I think if we could be aware of that and not let them be any worse off, please. It was bad enough before COVID-19. Let's get back to where we were if we can, and address the issues for these people.
They're obviously all very important issues. So what I think, having dealt with a few heavy topics now, we'll move on to something a bit lighter. Yeah, okay. And I want to maybe ask you now about your own acting career. And where did your interest in acting come from? When did you get started?
Oh, I think when Brendan came into the house.
Okay.
Right, when he was born. That was when my acting career kicked in. But seriously, when you come from a large family and you have a mother like we had, who's very busy, so her time is very limited, you're all vying for that position on her lap. Yeah. Okay. And she was a big woman, if you remember, right? And she always looked as if she was in a perpetual state of pregnancy.
And guess what?
That's because she was. But she didn't have much of a lap anyway. So so that's where you learn to, if you really wanted attention rather than just crying, which is what I did a lot of, but for me to get positive attention, it was to do it in a different way. So you either, try to be funny or sing a song or entertain or, just that little extra that got you, look at Eilish, isn't that, that kind of thing. So I think that was my training ground, right? And I think maybe my need to be the centre of attention was born out of that trauma, to be honest with you. It never left me, and I'm sure a therapist would have a field day with me, right? That you're constantly on an ego trip. I'm not. I'm constantly... I'm talking about now why I went into acting and why I got so much out of it. Yes, I loved the attention. I loved having that moment where people are listening to me, and I'm not going to get interrupted. Right?
The O'Carrolls, we never interrupt each other, do we?
We never. No, there you go. You're so right. So we never interrupt each other. So and I love performing, right? So it happened naturally. I started singing in a band when I was about 17, and I loved that. We thought we were going to be the next Peter, Paul and Mary, and we really had it made. We did a few gigs and so on and so forth, but life gets in the way of these things.
Yes.
And I met my first husband, went off to England and got married. And then through that, what I did was I joined drama groups, local drama groups. So I exercised that need that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I never lost my interest. And I always dreamt from the time I was a kid, my dream was to be an actor, to be a singer, to be a dancer, right? I wanted to be all of it. I didn't just want one thing. And I did get an opportunity to do all of it in Elvis Is My Daddy.
Yes.
And I might have been the wrong side of 60, but it didn't matter to me because when I did it, the kid in me was so chuffed. It was like I brought that 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old on the stage with me.
And listen,
I'm
going to come back to that in a little bit more details. I want to hear about your experience in that. And just before that, I mean, you came to, I suppose, to the professional acting a bit later. What did you do in between? Or what kind of jobs did you do before then?
Oh, listen, I have a list of jobs I did. I started off, I came out of Parnell College as a secretary, typist, shorthand typist. Couldn't take shorthand to save me life. And I was a terrible typist, right? But I ended up working as a secretary. They were my first jobs.
Right.
And then when I moved to the UK, how I got a job as a GPO telephonist is beyond me. But I did, right? And I actually enjoyed it, right? I then went from there, what did I do then? I was GPO telephonist. Then I went into, sales.
Right.
Now I wanted to be a salesperson because I knew that's where you could make money, right?
Okay.
And I knew what I was good at. I was good at talking, right? And did it really matter what I was selling, right? Because you're selling yourself, right? But trying to break into that field was very, very, very difficult. So in between those times, I worked as a barmaid for the Students' Union. And it was term time only, so I could have my kids, right, when they were at school. So I was off when they were off school and so on and so forth. From there, I did a bit of cleaning, right? You do what you have to do. So I was a cleaner or domestic hygienist, whatever you want to call it. And I was a cleaner. I worked as a PA for a Saudi Arabian family, right, who were living in the UK. And that was really interesting. Because I had to book things like tennis coaches and make flowers that arrived on time and that kind of thing. I then did merchandising, right? And then from there, I thought this is all. I went back into cleaning, right? I had to keep working. And then I found myself on my own with 2 small kids, and I thought, I need a job that pays a male wage, right? So I started answering every sales rep's job, and I kept getting rejection. Until one came from my brewery, Courageous Brewery, and I went for the interview, and it was kind of a 3-day interview, like 3-day different workshops. Anyway, I got the job, right? I was one of 2 women in a sales force of 47 men in the UK, and I covered, of all places, I had to sell into the army, all the army bases.
That's a hard sell, Eilish.
Well, it's a hard sell when you have a Dublin accent, You're talking about 1970s, and I think 1981 or something. You know what I mean?
What was going
on? It was
on,
a very hard sell, but I loved it, right? And I learned, and I did get the car, and I did get the good money, and I learned. I was kind of. Salesperson of the year, 2 years running. Wow. Now I had to be better than my male counterparts to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there was extra hurdles.
Just the way it was, absolutely. And you know, what would a woman know about beer, for God's sake? Yeah. But I managed to convince people that you didn't need to know anything about beer to know what sold.
Yeah. It's about being the salesperson. And just to go on from that, is there another career you would have liked to have tried or might yet like to try?
Oh, I'd love to do radio. I would love to be a radio host or a TV host. You know, I'd love to be kind of, and again, not an interviewer. Just want to have conversations with people. And I think it should be light-hearted, I'm serious here, where necessary, but fundamentally just so that the audience can get to know the person, right? And, I suppose ordinary people with extraordinary stories appeals to me, right? That it may not be this famous person on the couch, but by the time they finish telling their story, everybody in the country wants to know them.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll move on. So, I mean, obviously you did go into acting, and how did you get involved then with Mrs. Brown's Boys?
Well, I was running away, okay?
Right.
And coincidentally, when I decided I was running back to Ireland, Brendan asked me if I wanted to work with him, because I didn't know where in Ireland I was going to run to.
Right.
And he said, look, I'm travelling with the show, and he said, and I need a wardrobe mistress. So I said, well, to be honest with you, Brendan, I don't know how to sew a button on. He said, that's okay. Right? It's not you don't have to. No, you learn, right? So I took the job, right? And we travelled with Grandad, surely he's still alive, I think it was, or might have been the course, can't remember. And we travelled around and I did that, and I saw every county in Ireland, and I still couldn't make up my mind where I wanted to actually live. And where could I afford to live? Because we're talking health of the Celtic Tiger, height of the Celtic Tiger. And then in 1999, he wrote the first of Mrs. Brown's Boys, and the woman who was playing Winnie needed time out, and he said, "Listen, I was also like wardrobe mistress and understudy for all the female parts, right? So he said, you'll have to stand in for tonight." He said, "Oh, it's a couple of nights, this will be grand." So I said, well, could I have a little bit of a rehearsal with you? Yeah, come down at 5:30, we'll have a bit of a rehearsal. But he never showed up at 5:30, needless to say. And the show goes out at 7:30 in the UK. It was in Glasgow, I will never forget it. And there's 1,200 people sitting out there, right? And this is my first debut out on stage, professional, right? When I say I SH1T myself, I mean I was really, really strung out. But when I went out, I knew that I wasn't afraid of the audience. It was the other actors. It was like, they were behind me, but they're anxious because I might forget or I might walk in the wrong place or whatever. Anyway, so in my head, when I went out, it was back in our little house in Stony Batter, where we're all taking our turn to perform. And I thought, that's where I'm going. I'm going out to my little house in Stony Batter, and I want to be the centre of attention. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And the rest, as they say, Barry, is history.
It's history. There you go. And that's, wow, I never realised that. That must have been absolutely terrifying to do that.
It was unreal. I mean, if anybody asks me, what's the highlight of Mrs. Brown's Boys days? For me, that was the highlight.
Well, that was going to be my next question, and you've just answered it.
Yeah.
And apart from that, were there any other particular things that, I mean, you've won prizes over the years, BAFTAs and IFTAs, and you've toured all over the world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were mind-blowing experiences. Like, the first of everything is always fantastic. Like the first time I walked on stage, the first time we won an award, and it wasn't a BAFTA and it wasn't an NTA, it was, I think it was the Pride of Ireland or something like that in Manchester, right? And it was the first award ceremony any of us had ever gone to, and I loved it. The people were gorgeous. The people who won were fabulous, who got the award. The first BAFTA was, let me tell you guys, BAFTA is like a cattle market, okay? That's what it is. Yeah. It's a cattle market. And everybody is so busy looking beautiful and trying to stand in high heels that are going to give you back problems for the rest of your life. It's not about, and it should be about, for me, the BAFTAs are about awards for excellence, and whether it's an individual award or a show or a documentary or whatever, that's the best. It's voted the best for that year, right? But it's the glitz and the glamour that go with it, and I found that exciting. The run up to it was exciting, although I didn't go and buy very expensive. I got my dress in Liberty Market. I'm serious.
Brilliant.
Right? I couldn't. I mean, it was the very early days. I couldn't afford to go out and spend 700 quid on a dress. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got mine in the Liberty Market from a lovely guy called Charlie. He had a vintage stall, right? And I think my whole outfit came to, including the shawl and the jewellery and everything, came to about €110, right? But I got the greatest kick out of it, Barry, because I remember standing and this woman came over to me, and because she didn't know me from Adam, because nobody knew who we were, right? And she came over to me, she said, excuse me, darling, where did you get your dress? It's absolutely stunning. And initially I'm going, oh God, is she for real? You know, and I thought, well, she actually, and I said, it's an Irish designer. I said, Charlie is his name, but he would kill me if I gave out his card, because he's just snowed under, right? But thank you, I'll pass on your compliments. And I love that. I just love that, because, you know, again, we all judge with our eyes, don't we? And we make these assumptions about people. And this is exactly what I did when I'm talking about the cattle market. But yeah, it is a bit like that. You don't get fed until after the awards. Well, we didn't that particular time. And you've drank all the wine that's on the table anyway. So by the time the awards start, you're kind of sliding on the table. The high heels have gone. They're gone, right? So yeah, it's an experience.
Yeah.
But great. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. How many people have won a BAFTA?
You know, I don't know. 4 NTAs.
Yeah.
2 Scottish BAFTAs, 1 British BAFTA. Australia just blew my mind completely.
Yeah, I was going to get on to that. Actually, you've obviously toured all over the world with this. What places did you find the most interesting to visit?
Well, we toured Australia, we toured Canada. When I say we were in just in Toronto and Canada, but in Australia we were everywhere. We were Brisbane. We went to New Zealand as well. Brisbane, Sydney. Newcastle, Perth. I've lost count. It was just like unbelievable. And the reception we got. Now, bearing in mind, they had never seen the stage show. They'd only ever seen the television show. But so their perception is we're just a television success bringing on a road show. When in actual fact, it's the other way around. We're a road show that brought it to the television, right? But to see 6,000 people in Perth on their feet, right, in Perth Arena as we came down for our bows, definitely moved me to tears. That was like the moment, because what happens in an arena is they turn the house lights on when you come down for your bow. So suddenly you see how many people are out there. And it actually takes your breath away. You actually go, oh my God. And, you know, I felt so blessed and so full of gratitude that I'm part of something like this, right? That I get to enjoy this. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah, that sounds like it's an absolutely incredible experience. And of course, your partner Marion is part of the crew as well, and Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
And what's it like? And I know this because I work with my wife as well, so we work in close proximity. How do you find that?
We find it okay because Marion's job as stage manager is totally separate from mine. So she has she's on a different call. Marion's very focused on her job. So we really only see each other, you know, before we go to work and after it's over, right? Now, I do get a bit miffed sometimes when she's like doing the calls, right? And I might be 30 seconds, you know, late coming down, right? And I get the bollocking. Right? And I go, well, I didn't hear you bollocking, you know. But we work really well together in that respect because I totally respect her. I've done it myself. Right, so I know how important it is not to move a prop from the table. You know, always to say if you're going to the loo, tell the stage manager. You know, I know I'm on in 10 minutes, but I'm actually going to have to go for a quick pee. That kind of thing. So yeah, I you know, well, we do really well. We've never ever had an issue work-wise, which is great.
And you met Marion in Cork, didn't you?
I met Marion in Cork, yeah. In Link.
Yeah.
Which for lesbians in Cork. And it was an over 40s group at the time, so I went in there and
I'm now
I had just
eligible
been
for that, Eilish.
sorry?
I'm now eligible for the over 40s group. It's great.
I was, well, I was eligible, I'm still under 50, you know what I mean? I'm going, yeah, I've just about made this. And that's where I met her.
Yeah.
And she had just, again, you judge with your eyes, and I see this woman and I thought, there's a real lesbian, right? She is happy in her skin, she definitely is. Only to discover that actually she still hadn't come out, right? She was terrified, just like I had been. Always knew she was different, always knew she was a lesbian, but never did anything about it. And I thought, the dogs in the street would know you're a lesbian, because I was judging with my eyes. She's got short hair, wears a denim shirt and all this kind of thing. And that's where we met, and we started going out for walks in groups, and we'd socialise together, and then after about 6 or 9 months, I think it was, we actually kind of hooked up and thought, actually, you're very, very nice. And that was 17 years ago, so that's
wow, and
I'm still with that very, very nice person.
Yes, and I've met Marion many times, and I can confirm she's an absolutely lovely person.
And she's a Cork woman,
She is a good Cork woman, absolutely.
A good Cork woman,
yeah. I'm very proud of it, and rightly so.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on. You spoke a little bit earlier about loving the attention and that, and obviously with Mrs. Brown's Boys, that was great. However, you then got to do your own one-woman show, which was Live, Love, Laugh. And I remember when you came, you were performing in Blanchardstown in the Drake Centre, and you came into me in the library beforehand, and you were terrified. You were terrified. And what was that whole experience like?
Oh, that's when you're at your most vulnerable, because I'm on my own. I'm not acting opposite anybody. Nobody's going to dig me out if I lose my place and so on and so forth. So that was probably the scariest process of my life. And yet I'm so proud of myself for doing it. And the whole process was cathartic, because writing it was one thing, and then when it was selected for the festival, I thought, oh my God, I got to perform it now. And performing it was another. So you're so caught up in getting it right, and it was only through doing it so many times that you then begin to feel it and own it. And I realised then that when people had said to me, I love your story because you're so honest, right? And I wasn't sure what they were talking about. I didn't really get it, and very courageous. And I'm going, there's nothing courageous about that. There's not courageous about the story until I really started looking at the words, and the words would then obviously bring back the memory and so on and so forth. And I thought, oh my God, I really didn't intend to be that open and that honest. It was just, but yet I'm very glad I did, because for me it was like a confessional.
Yeah.
But I wasn't looking for absolution. Right?
Yeah.
I just needed it out there, and it was fun to do. And yes, it is honest, and yes, it is brutally honest. But I think it's also very thought-provoking. And I think it's also at times very funny. It's real. What it is, it's life.
It is.
And it's not just my life I'm talking about. Every woman, and some men, really identified with it.
Well, I can tell you, Eilish, I've been doing a series over the last few weeks with a lady called Rita O'Donovan, and she teaches mindfulness. She's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
And it came up in conversation. It turned out she was there that night, and she said she has never, ever been affected so much by a show that she's seen. She said it resonated with her. She got it. And to this day, it stays with her as one of the those things. So I mean, you should be very proud of that.
I am, because, and I think we're afraid to show our vulnerability, and I think whether I intended it or not, that's what happened in this story, right? Because it's no holds barred. And I thought, God, you are a very vulnerable person. But that's okay, because you know something? We all are. what we do is we mask it, right? We're afraid to show our vulnerability. And that's normal, that's natural. But I got the opportunity to go, here I am, warts and all. and pray. I didn't even pray that they would still like me. It was almost like, this is all I have, right? Me. And of course, I was so proud that people did enjoy it. And I was so proud that people got something out of it. And I've no regrets in doing it. And I would say to anybody, get up there and tell your story. Because we all have a wonderful story to tell.
And I don't think you've ever forgiven me for buying a ticket the dead centre of the front row.
Sorry. I do not need my nephew sitting there, dead centre, because I'm going to be talking about things I really don't want to talk about in front of you.
Okay, it was superb. And then just talking about performing on stage, my colleague Siobhan, who you've met, of course, wants to know what's the funniest heckle you've ever heard from the audience?
You know, I have to really think about that, because I'm very fortunate in so much as the shows I've done, right? There's never been any heckling, right?
Yeah.
There's been the odd disturbance, but there's never been a heckle directly at it. Now, like comedians tend to get heckled. You know, when somebody's trying to tell a joke or a story and it's a funny story, they tend to go, you know, we'll become part of this show. So I haven't got a funny story to tell as far as heckling is concerned.
So you've been lucky. You've been lucky.
Oh, I feel very lucky, because I think, you know, obviously the audiences, you know, are pretty respectful, and they might want to heckle, but they didn't. And I don't know how I'd handle a heckle.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, because, you know, it gives you the opportunity to be spontaneous. But, you know, would you be spontaneous in a funny way or a not so funny way? Would you be angry? Would you be, you know what I mean? Would you be showing a side of you that you don't want to show?
I've seen Jimmy Carr cut down hecklers like that. He is unbelievable.
And they have to, right? Because the one thing a heckler will do, if you don't have Tim Brendan, when people, you know, heckle, or if they're even after the show is over and they think it's a free-for-all and they can shout up, right? And eventually he'll say to him, listen, I'm on stage, not you. Now sit down and shut up, right? And they do, right? Like he cuts it, he's like straight to the point, right? And they do, right? Or if the phone rings, if somebody's phone rings in the theatre, and he'd always bring it onto the stage, and he'll say, look, I remember one night I was on, and he says, Winnie, is that your phone ringing? And I went, no, I sure I haven't got my phone with me. And he said, no, I didn't think it could be you. He said, even you wouldn't be that stupid to leave your phone on in the theatre.
Yeah.
Right, so now the audience are part of it, and can see the funny side of it, and the person whose phone is ringing is dying alive.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, we haven't too long to go. You're probably we're exhausted at this stage. I've really put you through your paces on this one. I'm just going to move. I'm loving this, and moving on. Then, you did Elvis Is My Daddy, and I remember saying to you at the time, I didn't know you could sing, and you said I didn't know I could either. What was that like?
I didn't know I could sing either. That was a pure joy to do, and the writer John Murphy came to see my show in Belfast, right? At the very early days is when I was doing my show. And about 6 months later, he rang me and he said, listen, I'm working on a bit of a script, he said, and I'm kind of writing the part for you of the diva, right? And he said, could I come down and chat to you? So he came down and he shared the script and so on and so forth with myself and Mary and the bits he done. And he said, you know, and I'm reading and I'm going, oh, John, I don't know. Where's the diva in me? And he just roared laughing. He said, believe you me, there's a diva in you, right? Anyway, God love me, he worked so hard to get this put together. And it was, again, the most terrifying experience because we opened in the Sugar Club, right? But we loved doing it. It was just a fun show to do. yeah, I didn't know that I could sing. I knew I could sing like anybody else, you know. I mean, you can sing at a party or whatever, but I'd never been on stage singing before. And yeah, and I got to sing, and I got to be the diva, and I got to wear the glitzy dresses, and I got to do all the things the kid used to imagine.
Yes.
Right? And I got to dance, and and it didn't matter what age I was, right? Because the dream came true. On that one first night, I thought the dream has actually become a reality.
Wow. And I hadn't realised that part was written with you in mind. I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely, which was a huge compliment.
Absolutely.
Right?
Massive.
Absolutely huge compliment. And he said, no. He said, I wrote it. And one of the songs in there, he wrote Wrinkles and Tears. Mm-hmm. And when I read it, the actual lyrics, and I thought, oh, he really does know me. You know, And I couldn't have written that myself, you know. I just thought he really gets me.
And not only can you sing, we found out recently you can dance.
Oh, I can dance as well now. I didn't get much of a chance to show how well I could dance.
You did better than any of us, I think. That was...
Yeah, but listen, Barry, I loved that. I absolutely loved it. It was great fun to do. My only regret is I'd love to have stayed a few weeks longer. Not that I had any thought that I might actually win. I just wanted to be part of it. And I wanted to learn all the different dances, right? Because I thought, this is fantastic. So that was absolutely great fun. Made some great friends who I still have now to this day. I would do it in a heartbeat again.
I can say that both the singing and dancing genes did not pass through to my side of the family.
Oh, well,
and if you look at our wedding video, you see the first dance. There's actually video evidence of that.
Louis might be making up for that.
You know, well, he seems to be a good footballer like his dad, because that's another skill that skipped a generation. I can tell you, absolutely skipped it. In a big way. So, look, we haven't too far to go. So I want to ask you, and we touched on this earlier. Obviously, you had a mother, Nanny, who I knew her as Nanny, who achieved a lot, and you spoke about admiring different women. Which women do you admire the most?
Oh gosh, I admire so many women, and for very different reasons. Now, I admire Maya Angelou, the civil rights activist, but she was an author, she's a poet, she's a singer, and just a shining light in American history, and I just absolutely love her work. I love her poem, Phenomenal Woman. I love I Can See Why This Caged Bird Sings, the book. Just such a gifted woman, and did so much for black women in America. Who else do I like now? Oh yeah, there's a woman called, this is going to interest you, right. Dr. James, what's the surname? Dr. James Barry, Corkonian, female,
right.
Born Margaret Buckley. Have you ever heard of her?
I haven't.
She was renowned pioneering surgeon who performed the first caesarean operation in the British Isles, where the mother and the child survived. However, in order to do all of this, she had to pose as a man. She went to Edinburgh University, posed as a man throughout all her working career. She became a general in the British Army.
Wow.
Right? All of this she did as a man, and her sex only became revealed at her death. And she had left specific instructions to be buried in the clothes that she died in. So she wanted to be died as this Mr. James Barry, Dr. James Barry. But apparently some clerical worker or some lady was sent in and obviously undressed her and dressed him. But the courage that must have taken, the dedication that woman must have had to follow her dream. And at the time, I think she was born in 1879 and died around 1990, and went off to Edinburgh University at 20, right? To follow her dream, and could only do it posed as a man, because obviously women were not allowed into medicine. just,
Well,
I'd love to see a movie about her. I would love to see, you know, it on the screen.
I would, because you've blown my mind there, because you said at the beginning you'll be interested in this, and people who know me, I was born very premature. I was nearly 2 months ahead of schedule, and I owe my life to this woman.
You do.
From one Barry to another.
Absolutely. Now, I believe the first cesarean was actually performed on Caesar's wife. That's where the name came from. But I don't know whether Caesar's wife survived or the child survived. But this was the first where the mother and child survived.
Wow.
Right? And, you know, and again, I just think women like that, you know, to have to live a lie to achieve your dream.
Yeah.
And what you were born to do. I just think that's just so courageous.
Extraordinary story. I'm definitely going to find out about her now. That's you've given me some reading now.
I want to. Now, apparently there is a book out about her. They got all the archives together, and so I want to buy the book myself. So if I get it, I'll pass it on to you.
Definitely.
And I just came across. I think it was only a few weeks ago, and I think I was writing something about women in history, and you know, she just jumped off the page, and I went, wow, never knew about that. And of course, after her death, she went into obscurity again, right? I mean, she caused a big hullabaloo at the time because, you know, the woman who had discovered that she was a woman rather than a man tried to blackmail the army, and when that didn't work, she went public with the story and embarrassed, obviously, the British Army, embarrassed the Queen because she had signed, you know, the general, whatever, that has to be signed by the Queen at the time. You know, and it was like, God, this woman has fooled all of us.
Wow, and it's amazing. A lot of these women's stories are not as well known as they should be. I love travel writing, and I only recently found out about a woman called Mary Kingsley. One of these kind of, it was Edwardian or maybe Victorian era explorers who travelled the world dressed head to toe in her Victorian garb, and she sounded an extraordinary woman who once hit a leopard on the head with a pot who was bothering her. Like, just incredible. And I knew nothing about this woman. Like, and these are stories that have to be told.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel the same way, Barry. I mean, I'm looking at now at women in early history and Ireland. You know, famous women, iconic women that we don't know. They're not apart from Countess Markievicz, right? It's not an everyday kind of name that you go, oh, like when I said to Dr. James Barry, every child in the school should know who Dr. James Barry was.
Yeah.
Because she was Irish. Now the Irish remember her. But anyway, that's
and listen,
that's to start with.
Yeah, and I mean, we could go out. We could do an interview on that alone, I think, couldn't we? And maybe we will. Yeah. Maybe we will. That could be an idea for the future.
I really do hope so.
Yeah. And listen, considering your background, and obviously you've a great ability to connect with people, have you ever considered going into politics? Or?
No, I thought about it, and I thought, well, I think you have to know an awful lot about politics to actually be a politician. But I remember, I think my mother put me off years ago when she said, "There's no such thing as an honest politician." Mm-hmm. They couldn't even lie straight in bed. Now, in my adult life, I realised that she's dead right. There's no such thing. It's almost like if you're going to be an honest politician, you risk not getting elected. Mm. You know? So what they do is they play with the truth, or they avoid it, right? Yeah. But I admire them, right? I really do. I think they're performers. Right, just like everybody else here, it's like any actor that gets up to perform. You're in the public eye. You're subject to ridicule. You're subject to all sorts of things. I think they have a tough job on their hands. And no, I'd rather do what I do. Politics has never been never been my graw.
Right, and like I said, we're going to wrap it up very soon. But before I do, could you maybe tell us something about you that not many people know?
Okay. Well, I suppose not many people know how many times I reinvented myself in my life, right? And not many people know that I am actually a very vulnerable person, right? think other than that, I'm kind of an open book. Right? I think, people who don't know me won't know that success didn't come to me until much later on in my life. What else? Yeah, they would think that, I've been in the business for a long time. They won't know that, it hasn't always been easy, right? And that the change of fortune for me has only come in the last 10 years. So I am grateful it came, right? That's about it, I think.
That's it.
I can't think of anything else.
And you kind of touched on this earlier, and you mentioned to me a little bit before we actually started recording, is what's next?
What's next? Oh gosh, what's next, really? I want to continue writing for the joy of writing. What's next is I have no intentions of retiring. Right? I'm never going to let age be a factor. Let somebody else worry about that, because it doesn't bother me. I think you never stop learning. I'm fascinated now about women in history. Don't ask me why, but I am. For some reason, it's like, if I can get something, I go, has it been done before? Was it done by a woman? Oh my God! I actually enjoy history. I love period movies, period dramas. And so obviously I like to kind of...
Yeah, we've got that in common. I love history too, so we... We've chatted before.
And history is not a subject that I learned in school, because in primary you don't do history, and I kind of left school after my primary and then went on to Parnell College, where they just focused on giving you the skill to get a job, right? So, like, history, you don't need history, do you? So it's not something that I'm familiar with, right? So I kind of, there's a huge amount that where my education lacked, I would try to make up for it, not for any other reason other than the joy of knowing, the joy of learning.
Yeah. Listen, that has been absolutely fascinating. I've loved this. I could listen to you for another hour and a half, but it's getting late.
I could talk for another hour and a half, but I tell you, I really could talk for another hour and a half. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to be far too long. I mean,
doesn't matter. It's brilliant.
But if you have to edit away there, fella, and
no, there's nothing in that I leave out.
Just edit your bits, okay? Because I'm great, right?
Still as modest as ever.
No, it's been a joy. It's been a joy.
Yeah,
and I've really enjoyed it. So.
And before we say goodbye, I'll just say just stay on after I kind of wrap up. I'll just talk to you for a second. And so I'm just going to say that was Eilish O'Carroll. I mean, I don't think there's anything I can add to that. That was just absolutely fascinating, and for me, mind-blowing, because I learned so much about my family's history as well, things I didn't know before. And I know the people watching this video are gonna, will really have enjoyed this. So we're recording this on Thursday night. It's going to go out on Friday night. So I've no doubt it's going to get a great response. Eilish, thank you so much.
Barry, it was a joy. Thanks a million, darling.
Okay, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, please.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.